I'm here today with Simon Butcher, Senior Technical Services Manager at Smith's Environmental Products, and we're going to talk about the new Caspian fan convector and how it's been upgraded. So over to you, Simon.
So we've constantly made improvements over the lifetime of the Caspian product. So it's a bit like a Formula One car, keep tweaking elements, but this time we've particularly focused on increasing the outputs for lower temperature water heating systems, such as those utilising heat pumps or where we've got gas boilers using a maximum flow temperature of say 55 degrees. Some of the changes that we've included have been reconfiguring the fans to make sure the air passes through the coil at better angles. We've also increased the design of the coil by adding additional fins to the element, and also the way that we lace the coil up, and change metalwork that encloses the coil to make sure that we get the greatest amount of output possible with the quietest noise possible. The outputs have increased by around 20% across the range, although in some test points we've got as much as 40% increases.
So would it be safe to say that if you compare a new Caspian to an old Caspian, you could replace the older Caspian with a smaller Caspian?
Yeah, it is quite possible that you would be selecting perhaps a size down. So instead of a 120 unit, you probably would be going for a 90 unit.
And consequently, then there'll be some cost savings in the product.
Yes, there'll be huge cost savings. There's also reduced embodied carbon. And the other point that we would make is radiators, for example. You can't just shrink them down and change the internals to improve performance, where with a fan convector we're able to redesign the internals and have actually a smaller product giving a greater output, which is a huge advantage where space is at a premium, such as in a classroom.
So the other thing that I read was AC fans are dead, EC fans are the future. Is that correct?
Yes, so AC fans are less energy efficient than EC fans, and EC fans also offer you a vastly improved range of control options, such as being able to be controlled directly off of a BMS system, or indeed being utilised with our smart Caspian technologies.
So you mentioned smart control. Can you tell me a little bit about how that works and what it does?
Yes, so the smart control Caspians will also benefit from the enhanced outputs that we've discussed previously, but in addition to that, they're all about creating further energy efficiencies through control. And it's possible that you could gain up to another 40% worth of energy efficiency just through the controls. So we've integrated a valve to prevent the flow of heating water through the product, except for the times where they actually is required. And the smart controls also integrates all of the most popular control options that people would use, plus a few more. So it can be standalone, so it's a digital thermostat that the user interface end that could do 7-day timing. You can program it up. You can do the fan speed control with that, and you've got the option for either to be locked, so that users of this space can interact with it or not. And in addition to the standalone features, you also have the option of having a hub and then using it on an app, which is probably the most common way that our customers are using this product. So we have large schools with say 2,000 pupils there, and the entire school is being controlled via our smart controls application. And it allows site managers to be able to turn on the sports hall, for example, should there be a hiring. So it's a great level of control for individual rooms that the premise can get. Churches also love it because they can turn the heating on before an event without actually having to rock up to the church.
And because it's a fan convector, Caspian, it really heats the room much quicker than it would a traditional radiator.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So we actually have two options for the fan speed control. You can either control it manually, or you can set it to automatic. And if it's on automatic, if the room is very cold, the fans can come on high fan speed, which gets the absolute maximum possible output from the product. And typically this would be done before a building or a room came into occupancy, with the view that by the time people turned up to use the room, the fan speeds would have modulated down, and therefore the product would be very quiet, and probably people wouldn't even know it's actually working.
Okay, and then I suppose, you know, if you took a church for an example, it's not just the congregation area, it's the ante-rooms, it's where they have meetings, community meeting rooms, that sort of thing goes on in churches. Typically it's something like Caspian with smart control is perfect because it's used at certain times of the day, evenings, but not all the time.
Yes, oh yeah, it'd be absolutely perfect. So if you knew you've got a room where you can have a meeting, you can just literally just turn on the heating in that room and not heat the rest of the building. So it's,
yeah, have you got any examples that you could talk about for, say, a church or anything where you've used smart control with Caspian?
Yeah, so we did a church fairly recently near Oxford, and I had about 18 smart Caspian units, and different areas of the church can be controlled different times depending on what's going on. The other great thing with it is because each unit has its own thermostat, whether that's mounted remotely or integrally to the heater, if you've got doors that are going to be open a lot for people entering, say, the church, lots of air movement and air change will happen within that vicinity, and those heaters can react to it, whereas heaters that are much further into the building and not so affected by the air changes may well remain on a very low fan speed or not even need to operate at all.
Okay. So, and the other thing about a lot of smart controls is the ability to be able to control via apps or anything like that. Is this the same for smart control?
Yeah, so actual fact, the easiest way I found is to control it off of your phone, and you can use it with Android phones and iPhone, Apple phones. So that works well, but you can also control it off of a laptop or a desktop computer. And sometimes we find we work with contractors and they supply a tablet to be mounted in maybe the manager for the building's office. So that works nicely.
And I'm jumping ahead, but maybe if you've got a facilities manager that needs to look after several locations, they can monitor and see what's happening with the heating in those.
Oh, absolutely. We have a local hospice, and they control all of their shops and cafes using the app, which they very much like, because they can lock the system down and prevent staff from cranking up the heating to sort of 30 odd degrees or anything like that.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. I think I've learnt a lot about Caspian, the new Caspian and smart control, so thank you, Simon Butcher. Very welcome.